Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to show you a little bit about how Bootstrap works with layouts. And so if you go back to the Get Bootstrap website and click on documentation and then go down to where it says layout, you'll see that it kind of talks about how Bootstrap really works with these things called containers to basically create these areas of content. And they really are used a lot in WordPress. They're used a lot within the different components that you might add. And Bootstrap uses all these different um, containers to really harness a lot of the content within a lot of the components and other things that they have. So you'll see that they talk about how each of them has these breakpoints: extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large, and that's kind of what I had been talking about in earlier tutorials. But specifically, these are used to create a grid. And the grid is basically a way to lay out your content on your website. And you can see that every grid is inside of a container div. Okay, and a container basically moves something away from the edge of the browser, and it allows it to be used within all these different sizes of the screen. Okay, so I'm just going to create. Let's go ahead and grab this first example that they provide. And again, that's on the grid page of the uh, layout area of the Get Bootstrap website. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it into my file. And I'm going to paste it after my navigation, so below the navigation. Okay, so within the container div, I've got a row, okay, that opens. And inside that row, I've got 1, 2, 3 columns. Okay, and you can see that here they're listed as col, small, col, small, col, small. And I'll get to those smalls in a second here, but notice that they're all within one big row. And every time you see a row, know that there's going to be a new container kind of happening, a new layout that's going to be happening. And so I'm going to go ahead and just save this, and we're going to refresh it in the browser and see what we get in our site. And that's exactly what we see: one column, 2 columns, and 3 columns. And so what's happening is you'll see that as I make them browser larger and smaller, the container div is what makes it jump to the next size. So I'm at extra large here, and you'll see a jump when it gets to large. Okay, do you see that jump? Large. And go a little bit smaller and go to medium. There's medium. Okay, at medium size, it's still 3 columns. Now it's going to get to small size. And then at extra small, you'll see that they all stack. Okay, and that's what this SM means. It's saying basically at what point do you want it to be so large that it's going to stay until it jumps to the next breakpoint and it actually stacks this layout instead of making them side by side. And in this case, the largest that this is going to stay at three columns is going to be at the small size. So you'll see that if I make it at medium, 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 and I refresh my page, these 3 columns will stay until it gets smaller than medium. So extra large, it's good. Large is good. Medium is good. But after medium, they stack. Okay, you'll see they stack on top of one another. And that's where you really get to decide at what point do you want these columns to no longer be columns but to stack on top of one another. Normally I like to leave it kind of at medium. That's a good happy medium for you to place your content. And generally this is where you're going to start putting some actual content. So if I just said something like H2 and I said about, just kind of reiterated some of my pages. Check out this page to learn more about what wakeboarding is. You can do whatever you want there. Okay, and then say the next one was going to be, resources. We have a ton of wakeboarding resources. And then the last one could be contact, and you can put whatever you want. You don't even have to do a 3-column row, but this is just an example. Um, Contact us about anything you want regarding wakeboarding. Okay, and so when you save that, you can see that that's going to be pretty much pretty nice there. Okay, and you can decide at what point do you want it to break and do the stacking, and generally I like to do it around the medium size. So that works all well and good for this layout, but the cool thing about Bootstrap is you can have multiple layouts on one page. You don't have to just have a column, column, column. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it below and save it again, and we can create yet another row of 3. A 4-column, a 4-column, and a 4-column. The reason I say that it's a 4-column is because this is all based on a 12-column grid. An imaginary 12 lines are running through your website. And if you think about 12 vertical columns that are happening through your site, this is taking up 4 of those units. This is taking up 4, and this is taking up 4. So technically it's 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. Okay, 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12. You don't have to write that if they're evenly distributed, because it's column, medium, column, medium, column, medium. If you're just telling those 3 columns to be inside of a row, it's good. They're all going to be equally distributed amongst that row. But in some cases, you would want some columns to be wider than others. So in this case, maybe you wanted column med 2 and column med 8 and column med 2. What that would mean is the first column is going to be 2 in width, the next one's going to be 8 in width, and the next one's going to be 2 again, because 2 plus 8 plus 2 adds up to 12. And notice that this is all inside one row, and so every time you see a new row, only really 12 units can fit inside of there. Okay, so this would really not be a good example. Really, a good site to have is kind of this tiny 2 and then a large 8 and then a 2 at the end. But you may want to go ahead and delete one of these columns altogether and create a layout that has like a 4 and an 8. So an 8 and a 4. This would be a nice layout if you wanted like a main area of content and then a sidebar. Okay, so I'm just going to name this sidebar main area. Okay, so a lot of websites have like these sidebars with like a widget on it or something, and so you may want to have, or you could even do, instead of 8, 4, you could do 9, 3. Okay, because again that adds up to 12. Okay, and so basically any way you want to divide this up, you can, as long as it adds up to 12. And again, up here with this layout, because they're all evenly distributed, you don't have to specify the number of units that you want it to take up. It's assuming that because they're evenly distributed, that it's not matching them, so it's got to be evenly distributed. You could also do a 6, 6. It's half and half. Do a half. But again, you might, if you, instead of doing the 6, 6, you could just go ahead and just do column med, and just put 2 in there, and it will be evenly distributed inside of that row. Now, a lot of sites, like if I go back to the Bootstrap website and click on the examples, some of these examples provide, multiple layouts, but there'll be kind of this faint line between them, and there'll be a lot more space between the layouts. And so I think that looks nice, especially when you have multiple layouts on a page. You want to divide them up a little bit. And so I would recommend going back into your custom CSS and adding a dot row, and we can add some margin. So I'll do, let's go with 40px 0. Whoops, let me do margin 40 pixels 0. So that's going to do 40 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and the right. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to make some space in between these. And 40 may not be enough if you want to do like 60 or 80 or something. That'll help divide up your columns a little bit. And then if you want to add a row in between them, not a row but a border, you have this little code that you could add in, which is just basically HR stands for horizontal row. And so you can create this kind of horizontal row. I would put it before the container closes, but after the row ends. Okay, so within my divs here, my row has ended, and then you can add it here before the container closes. What that's going to do is it's going to be a nice little line for you there. Okay, if you put it in the right place, it will look nice. If you don't put it in the right place, it will not even show up in some cases and be too small in other places. So this is a nice way to create multiple layouts on a page. And if you go back to the Bootstrap website and click on um, um, the grid page here, there are lots and lots of other examples that you might want to use. So this one's the half and half, and then the third, third, third. They give you all kinds of nice little templates and code that you can copy and paste to make your layouts work for how you want them to look.